I watched this really good video talking about how you were once the smart kid, then why do you feel so lost now? And I really liked how the content of it was around how, as the smart kid, you seemed like your life was mapped out. You knew that you were going to be successful, you were getting praised by your classmates in some cases, or you were being bullied for being the smart one, as it was in my case sometimes. But toward later years in school, it didn't really happen. And then you would get a bunch of compliments. It looked like you were going to just be set for life. And I like how this video describes it from the point of view of when you based your identity around being smart, which I can say when I was younger, especially while I was still in school, that was 100% me. I can say that my identity was to be smart, to understand everything in my classes, to bring home the good grades. And it also was the expectation on me imposed by my mom. You better bring good grades, and if you don't bring a good grade, you better have a good reason for not bringing a good grade. But then, of course, life happened for me, and the way that life happened for me is that I'm low income, and I decided that because I'm low income, I'm not going to accrue a crazy amount of debt that in a life that's so uncertain, full of insecurity, full of change, and I didn't see clearly how I could make this be feasible for me in a way that's a justified stress as opposed to, oh my God, I have this debt and now I'm forever having to make decisions around it. I decided I wasn't going to do that. I decided if success was meant for me, I'm a believer that it's going to find me whether I want it or not. And I don't mean that to say that I can just sit here at home and just wait for success to find me without putting myself out there, right? But what I mean is that as someone who has never been ambitious, I just cannot imagine a life in which I changed that value and all of a sudden I'm all about ambition. Even if my life depended on it, I'm still not going to be ambitious because my view on existing is very simple. It's I'm an animal, animals live, animals die, but I'm part of the animal kingdom where this ape is smart enough to invent shit to make things complicated to gain control over other apes. And I just don't feel like I want to be a part of that. And since I don't want to be a part of that, then I have to suffer the consequences, which is lacking a lot of resources. If I didn't start off with an advantage, I'm not going to make my identity about resolving my shortcomings, right? So, anyway, when it comes to the emotional side of this video, I could agree with it 50-50. And it was because it was describing how other people seem to be living life because they allowed themselves to make mistakes. And you may consider them as not as smart, but it seems like at least they're living and it looks like they're doing just fine. And they're fulfilled in other areas of your life where you don't feel fulfilled, and how you are missing out on making connections with people. I'm personally aware of how many people I have imposed boundaries on. I have talked about that in here many times about how I don't allow people to easily come into my life because my life is already a mess, and it's not like I want to have more people to make it even messier. It's the thing of I sincerely feel okay existing with a very small group of people. A small group of people that's manageable, that I can keep up with, that I can report with every day or at least every week. And even if we go longer without communication, when we do communicate again, it's like we can pick up where we left off. I'm not dealing with people who are offended that I don't remember their birthdays, that I haven't texted them in a month, even though the phone works two ways. I haven't texted them, they haven't texted me. Those are the superficial level friendships that I'm not interested in, because I think that a friendship to me is more worth it if you're not going to take offense to the way I live my life or the way I don't live my life. And I have had the friendships where I felt like I had a good number of friends, but at the same time, I was struggling to connect with these friends because sincerely, I couldn't claim to be experiencing the satisfaction out of the friendship that I would expect. And it's not like I'm a user of people. It's not like I want this person in my life so that they can get me things, buy me things, fix me things. Just using people as tools. That's not really my purpose. What I mean is, at the end of a conversation, how did I feel? At the end of hanging out with this person, how did I feel? It is no different from you eat a meal, and the way you decide if you're going to eat it again is, how did it make me feel? If something made me feel sick, you're less likely to want to eat that thing that made you sick again. If you go to watch a movie, you are less likely to watch another movie from that franchise or from that director or whatever if you came out of that movie feeling dissatisfied, like you were not entertained. People are no different. If I encounter many experiences in my day where people left me feeling down and disappointed, then that is how I feel, and it's not good for me. I have to let it go. See what I mean? Like I have always said, and I will say it again, and I left this comment under that video. I said, my loneliness is incredibly simple to explain. It's lack of intimacy. And by lack of intimacy, I mean that naturally, the people who I have given authority over my life, given presence and influence over my life, say the four people that have no boundaries, you could say, or very little boundaries on me, over me, those folks happen to be different from me because you could say that if I were to define them as I need to use them for something, they are not proper to fulfill my needs. For instance, my parents. I needed my parents to be soft spoken, loving, affectionate, physically, and all that. That's not how they are. That's not who they are. But they are the people assigned to my life as my parents, as my parental figures. Let's say that I meet someone, let's say at work, that you meet a good coworker that outside of here you're friends with, outside of work you're friends with, and you think of them as a parent. They're about the same age as your parents. They advise you like a parent would. They care about you similar to how a parent would. If you forget your money, they're the ones to offer to buy you lunch and you don't have to pay them back, anything like that. And they may even affectionately call you something, give you a nickname, or they may even be physically the kind of person who they hug you as soon as they see you, something like that. Just because I'm getting that from another source that's not my parents, it doesn't mean that I'm going to be calling this other person mom or dad. I already have a mom and I already have a dad, as useless as he may be, as dissatisfying, unsatisfying, frustrating as he may be. That's still my father. Nobody can replace that. The people in my personal life who have their assigned roles, like parents, boyfriend, and brother, and all that, they do not encompass the definition of what I need from them as occupants of those positions in my life, occupants of those roles. Just because they aren't, it doesn't mean that I have a right to demand from them things like love, affection, money, protection, security, because it's not an obligation. I could tell them what my needs are. If they wish to fulfill them, that's great. But if they fulfill them at a cost to them, I have to examine that what I need from them is costing them something. And I don't want to be a selfish, self absorbed asshole who gets her needs met. But what about them? Them satisfying my need is costing them something that maybe it cost them too much. Maybe they won't have the guts to say something about it, or maybe they will fulfill it with a degree of resentment. I don't want to be that person who's inconsiderate. So, those people who are part of my personal life, who I still feel lonely even if they're with me, is because they are not satisfying my needs. But just because they're not satisfying my needs, it doesn't empower me to demand from them that they satisfy my needs. That's going to make them mad. That's going to make them feel inadequate. It's going to make them feel upset and offended. and they have a right to feel that way. If it were me, and let's say that I'm doing everything that I do to fulfill my needs best as I can, but also include them as beneficiaries. Imagine if they decided to tell me every day that what I'm bringing home is not enough, or that what I do for them is not enough. Like when my mom had her procedures, for instance, I barely helped her with anything because I said, well, if I start helping you, that is time away from my businesses, time away from work, time away from my body to work out or to cook and nourish myself and all that. Who makes up for that? What about me? So that imbalance, that's the best term I can come up with, imbalance, is what makes it challenging for me to feel fulfilled and satisfied in my personal life. But like I said, it's not that they're bad people or they're bad for me or that they're not trying or they don't care. It's just that this is the life that was given to us, and based off what we have inherited, we have to make certain decisions, we have to make certain moves. And in the process, some things may be neglected. So, for instance, the parents that were assigned to me in this life, they happen to be people who were not attached. They happen to be people who were not warm and loving and gentle and kind and affectionate, and they don't even give me compliments. Like my mom, for instance, like her saying that I looked nice or beautiful or something crazy, that would rarely happen. And you could say that did have an effect on me because it's easy for me to negatively criticize something than to positively criticize something. But I can tell you that when I give a positive rating to something, that I make it count. It takes more to impress me, but I can actually describe what it is that's standing out this time around. And it may sound like you're a very cold and calculating, manipulative person, but to me, I think that is what keeps me honest, because there are a lot of friendships going on out here that I really don't wish to have. And some of them just, you can feel the fakeness of it. How you're doing something to appease somebody or to, I guess, sing their tune to keep them as an ally. But it's not like there's a legitimate, true connection going on in there, because some of these people don't even know someone else's middle name, someone else's birthday, or what they would eat. Like I have said before, if you know me well, if you have a genuine, deep connection with me, you should be able to make a decision about me, for me, on my behalf when I'm absent without feeling the need to consult me on what you think I would like or what I wouldn't like. And I have met one person in this world who I can say has done that outside of my mom perfectly. Like they know that if they're gonna get me food, I can't do tomatoes. They know that I don't do coffee. Those little ass details. This is a person who clearly, when they were hanging out with me, they took the time to tune into me and absorb everything that I said. In the same manner that some people get shocked by me, by how much I remember about them. And I'm like, yeah, I can remember all this shit about you because at the time that I set aside to hang out with you and talk to you and connect with you, I was actually absorbing the shit you were saying. I wasn't there to just pass the time and fill in the air with some sounds and shit. And that's why I condemn those who can't do the same for me. I know people who I'm supposed to be close with who I feel like the more I tell them, the less they know about me. And I'm like, how has it been this fucking long and you still cannot make a decision for me without being like, well, I wasn't sure if you were gonna be into that, if you were gonna like that, or well, I didn't know what your favorite color was, even though you hear me talking about blue all the fucking time. Like that absentness, absentee kind of relationship. Like I know you, I know your face, I know your name, I know where you work, but that's about all you can handle. Superficial level shit, I can't handle that. It really feels toxic for me. And that's the part where I disagreed with this video. Like, I understand what it's trying to say about how some of us, when we were the smart kid, we were burned out in our youth, and now as adults we may be seen as lazy or lacking motivation because that identity, we had to let it go to, I guess, fit in to our present. And I look at it as, no, maybe that intelligence is just manifesting a little differently. I'm not showing up to a class, taking a standardized test and acing it and having effortless success. It's more of, I'm taking those traits that shaped a lot of my personality, but within those traits, there are skills. You can study people quietly from a distance, and you can decide that, okay, I may not be too successful at having a conversation with this person, but I'm not going to shut them out. I'll let them talk. I won't have a lot to contribute. I will absorb what I can, whatever they're trying to potentially teach me. I'll learn what I can, but after that, boom, I impose the barrier. I have the wall established. Because if I don't establish the boundary, that's going to stress me out. It's going to put a pressure on me that I don't need to be having. And the relationships that do work for me, it's natural. I don't have to think about what I have to say next. It's like an automatic reflex. Like I'm reacting to a conversation as opposed to having to calculate what's the next thing I'm going to say. It is true, you do have to drop your guard a little bit and not deprive yourself of your opportunity to put yourself out there and belong to something, as opposed to clinging to this thing that you have been clinging to that has impeded your growth. But what makes me have trouble identifying with the video in full is that I'm aware of that. And this is what I have chosen. This is what I have decided because this is what works for me. And there's a lot of drama that a social life brings that I can tell you I don't suffer from. I don't have issues from. And that my resources and time and mind and energy are not being consumed by things that don't build me up. And I noticed that some folks do cling to some social presences that really don't do them much good. All it takes is drain their money, drain their time, drain their energy, and you have a temporary good time. But what did that good time actually bring you? You may be invited for the next throwdown, but again, what is this doing for your subsistence, for your survival, for your growth? And maybe some of the people I have talked about in here that I'm like, y'all are still acting like high schoolers at 45 years old. Maybe I'm coming onto something. Maybe that is the behavior and pattern that I'm identifying, but these folks don't even see that because that is their identity. Their identity is to continue behaving like that high schooler they were because that is the peak they experienced and they still want to continue carrying on that peak into their adult life. And I'm saying that to me, when it comes to intellectual performance, sure, I peaked in school, but I can say that outside of school, at my job, in my personal life, I continue peaking. I still have yet to feel like I have reached my summit in the intellectual sector. Why? Because I accept that there's a lot I don't know. And even you guys have tried to point out to me that I'm very ignorant on certain matters. And when you say that, I don't get offended. Why don't I get offended? Because I'm aware. I'm aware that I can't know everything. I cannot understand everything. And I also accept that my education was limited. And once you accept that and you carry on with that fact without shame, you'll be all right. That's why I'm not afraid of putting myself out here on the spot. And there are times in which I can't even do a very decent food review. I have trouble describing a food because it may be too simple, or it may be too complicated, or it may be too stupid. I accept it. I'm fine with that. I'm comfortable with that. Whereas if I were still behaving like I used to back in high school, this channel wouldn't exist, because unless it was perfect, unless I had my information together, unless I could include the works cited, or unless I could include evidence, photographic or video of the other participant or something, unless I had everything perfect, I didn't want to present something at all. I mean, if that doesn't show maturity and growth on my part, then I don't know what those things mean. So, anyways, you guys, I thought I would share that this was a pretty good video that I could resonate with here and there. But I also want to explain how I broke from that before I even tuned into this video, but how there are some things I can agree with, but how the things I don't agree with, what is it about my life that enables me to disagree with those points? Feel free to share whatever thoughts you may have, like always, and I'll see you next time.